Hello and welcome. This is Rob Chisholm doing you a little intro into thermal activity and a little flight plan at Mount Caban in the month of April. Here I am with a glider above my head. I've literally just launched this glider because I've seen some rise in air. I've seen it way out over the railway track. I'm interested. Hands back, running forwards into the sea. I suggest you don't do that if you're on low air time. Just take it easy. This is not a ridge soaring day. I'm on thermal. And there I say to John Porter, who's on my right, I said there's a thermal, I see it out the front. Now, what's going to actually happen is there's two of us here trying to share the same air. So I'd like to turn right because that's officially the rule we do over here when we're at the ridge. I could turn left, but I sense the air's on my right. Now sadly John goes out of the air, but he does later come back in, but he does very well. He gets to 2,800 feet. My interests are still on going out the front. I want to get this thermal I've seen. It's repeated itself over 10 minutes. So right now you can see I weight shift. I really weight shift in there. There's not a lot of brake on. It's just the weight shift that gets the glider around. Now you can see there the two shadows. That's John Porter and Paul Watts. So they're now above me. They've risen, if I remember correctly. So I've got the ridge. It's not too close, but I've flown away from the ridge and I've used what I can. I don't really want to drift back too much. I'm going to push out. And remember, the wind's quite light. It's more south today than southwest. And hey, if you're CP and below pilot rated, think of it this way. If you go over the back, technically you want to be pilot. If you've never flown over the back, where you're going to land, what you're going to do. Are you going to fly into the AIAA? And if you don't know what that means, you definitely shouldn't be flying over the back, because you may find yourself in connection with a towed glider, etc. So there's a lot to do. So what I suggest, if you're below pilot rating, you can do this little task yourself. I put a little slideshow up at the end to navigate your way around. Explore thermal activity in the safe confinements of Mount Caban. Lots of flat fields to land in. Now this one coming up, this is Ranscombe Lane, that's below. And you see that sort of area there. It's going to get a lot smaller later, but that there is quite sheltered. Yeah, and that area heats up. Now, what happens is the air comes over the top of the trees and leaves inside that area all alone. So it warms up and you get a temperature difference. And hey boy, there's nobody in my way. I've got the whole area to myself. I'm away from the ridge. I can now go off and do what I do is a left-hand 360. Now, if it was windy, that thermal and I would drift straight back into the hill and possibly straight into the pattern of people that are ridge soaring. So again, just to get this ingrained in your head, it's not a ridge soaring day. This is a thermic day. That means you need to leave the ridge. You might do a forward or rear launch, winds are light, and you've got to get into rising air. Now if you're a novice and you're not used to this, you may find this a little bit unsettling on your glider, because hey, whoops, we've gone a little bit quicker now. This is about 3 more minutes. I just chopped out the video and we've risen pretty quick. The V's just down there, by the way. It looks quite big. It's quite a big area to get a thermal off. And this is the thermal I was on about. There's a thermal out there. I know there's thermals out there all over the place, but this is where it is. This is where to be. So I've got no one, absolutely no one in my airspace. I've got the whole place to play. I mean, this is paradise. I have to concentrate on where the air is, look for the rising air that's coming below. But this is the little pattern I would suggest you do. You take off and you catch your thermal out the front, you go safely over the railway and you head off towards that roundabout. Then from that roundabout you can take a right, fly up the A27, and then you can take another right later, which will be at the farm, with altitude remember, at Mount Caban, and then you could come back out to the roundabout, and then you're becoming slightly downwind to that first area where we sourced the thermal, and then you can land on top. Or if it's very thermic, you can land at the bottom and walk up. You've got that huge big area that's flat for landing. But when you're out there, have a good look around, you can stay up longer. But it's sort of making, more or less a little shape, a triangle shape or whatever you want to call it. So you get used to navigating where you want to go. Because if you're into flying up and down the ridge and you land on top, that's all, that's good. But when you want to fly thermal activity and thermals are coming through the ridge, the worst thing you could do realistically is fly up and down a ridge expecting laminar airflow and go up 40 feet, 50 feet with somebody else who's trying to 360. You'll fly through the area of lift, which is not ridge lift, it's thermal activity. So it puts constraints on other pilots who are flying. It puts pressure on other pilots that you're trying to fly with because you have no understanding of what's going on. So think, if it's thermic, don't think ridge lift. If you want to fly in ridge lift, New Haven Cliffs, it's brilliant. It's smooth laminar airflow, it comes off the sea. Now, later in the year, you'll get a bit more ridge lift, but Mount Caben's not that particularly good for ridge lift. It's a shape of a magician's hat. That means it doesn't produce an awful lot of lift. The lift band is designated in little areas, so it's not the same as New Haven Cliffs, which produces a superb lift band for ridge soaring. Now, what I'm doing here is just going to catch a bit more lift and just going back into the video. I'm looking down thinking, you know what, that field's not producing any lift. I was expecting something off that. But while we're here, why don't we just pick up on that field's one colour and the other fields are a different colour. But I head back off to the roundabout and try and catch some more lift. When the fields are a different colour, obviously one's heating up more than the other. Now, it may look disconcerting. I'm most probably not paying too much attention to the roundabout. When I review this video, I'm seeing lots of other detail. So when I'm flying, obviously, I'm looking in a different way. I'm looking for these signs, which might be just some seagulls that fly around. I'm looking for information, shadows on the trees there that going across a railway track. I can tell the time of day, what's going on, where the shadows are, where the heat is. And when I finish doing all this, I'll pick up another little bit of lift on the way back and I'll be heading back to land on top. So the area down there on the right, that's got water in, and you do get some good temperature changes off there. The area on the left, or just coming up, there we are, on my right now, sorry, that's where we first got our first thermal. So I'm just coming back over the same area. I could quite happily go to the landing and land at the car park, but I have a customer who's coming up the hill, so I really need to cut my flight short, come into top land. This is coming into top land. Now, I'd recommend, if you've had a flight like this and it's thermic, it's far better, quite honestly, to land at the bottom. You're less likely to get bumped around. Remember, this is a magician's hat, so the airflow is coming straight up here. So where I'm coming into land, the full force of the lift, that means followed with thermal activity, is coming my way. And that can make it potentially hazardous because the ground's not very far away. I might be abruptly having to sort the glider out. So there we are. There's Neil on his factor 2. He's giving me lots of room, not launching. That's very kind. And that's how busy it was that day. There was about 5 of us. So glider down. We'll go straight into the flight plan now. So we've gone 1. So that's your thermal. And then we're on to the other ones. That's the first thermal. Catch your thermal. Push out the front. Brownfield there giving off some thermal. Third thermal over the roundabout. We seem to pick something up there. Down over the houses, next thermal. And then we're back towards where we started and we come into top land. And that's a good thing for you to practice if you're below pilot.